Hey there, diving into the world of AI today, and well, it feels like it's everywhere you look these days, right? But we're gonna try to get past all the hype and really go deep on something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Should the goal even be like building AI that thinks exactly like us? Or is that, I don't know, kind of missing the point, maybe even holding the whole thing back?
You know, it's interesting how much of AI research, like for decades now, has been this kind of copycat game. Can we make a machine trick a human? That whole Turing test thing. It's been influential, sure, but there's more and more voices saying, hold up, is that really the finish line we want?
Right. It's like, yeah, a chatbot that can almost convince you it's human. That's neat and all, but then you hear about how much bigger AI could be, and it's like, more?
You got it. Imagine this. We put all our effort into AI being our mirror, but doesn't that mean it's stuck with all our, limitations, our biases? We're basically saying, be as good as us, but don't even try to be better.
Okay, yes, stuck is a good word. So we might be putting a ceiling on what AI could do if we're too busy making it a really good copycat.
And maybe even missing out on solutions to the problems that we have trouble with. Like, take figuring out how proteins fold. That's huge EE for medicine, new drug design. Turns out, AI is already doing amazing stuff there, and a big reason is it's not limited by thinking like we do.
So instead of those AI customer service reps that still put you on hold, we could have, AI scientists making breakthroughs left and right. Is that what you're saying?
Now you're getting it. It's a totally different future we're talking about. AI that helps us reach further, do more, not just kind of automate us out of the picture.
Okay, so less AI taking our jobs, more like AI helping us actually do our jobs better, or even like jobs we haven't even thought up yet. That's way more exciting, I gotta say. But how do we actually make that happen? How do we steer things that way?
Well, it's not a simple answer, that's for sure. We've got to rethink how we design AI in the first place, the policies around it, even just how we talk about the whole thing. Like, picture this. Tax breaks, right? But specifically for companies that use AI to empower their workers, give them new tools, not just replace them altogether.
I like the sound of that tax break. So it's not just about the code itself. It's about making sure people have a good reason to use it for the right things.
Absolutely. It's got to be about more than just, can we build it? It's what are we building and for whom? It's a whole shift in how we see AI's place in society.
Which brings up something I was wondering about. If this Turing trap, if mimicking us isn't the goal anymore, what does success even look like? How do you measure that for an AI that's, doing its own thing out there?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, there isn't just one answer. Maybe that's a good thing, though. It means we get to decide what success looks like in a way that matches what we care about.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. But before we go too far down that road, maybe we should figure out, what are those things we care about? If we're talking AI that goes beyond human capabilities, what's the best case scenario? Where are we even aiming for?
Well, I think at the very least, we got to make sure that whatever we build, it's helping everyone, not just a select few.
Right. No AI overlords allowed. We've all seen enough sci-fi to know how that goes.
Exactly. This has got to be about making sure that AI is making things better for everyone.
So equitable access to AI and whatever it can do, that's a big one. What else? How do we make sure it's used for good? There's all the ethical stuff you hear about, too.
And that's where things get even more interesting. Because we're not just building some smart machine here. We're talking about the future of intelligence itself, And that means we have a responsibility to really think about what we're doing every step of the way.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready to dive into those ethical waters. But before we do, tell me more about this better future we're shooting for. Give me the optimistic version, the ideal. What does a world where we're using AI for good, where it's helping us reach our full potential, what does that look like? Paint me a picture.
Well, imagine if AI could help us solve some of the really big problems humanity's facing. Like climate change, poverty, diseases we haven't cracked yet.
Okay, now you're talking. Those are some big ones for sure.
But AI might be able to help us get there faster in ways we can't even imagine right now. Take climate change, for example.
Yeah, that's a big one everyone's worried about. What, AI is going to design us some super solar panels or something?
Think bigger. What if AI could help us come up with totally new types of renewable energy? Or figure out how to use the resources we do have in a smarter way globally? It could even get good enough to predict those crazy weather events, maybe even help us lessen the impact,
So not just making things we have better, but coming up with totally new solutions we haven't even thought of yet.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Imagine AI helping us personalize medicine like treatment plans based on your exact genes and how you live. What if diseases that seem impossible to cure now could become, like, manageable or even preventable with AI giving us the answers?
Okay, now you're talking about adding years to people's lives, and good years, not just.
Yeah.
Oh, that's huge. But what about people who can't get those treatments? Even now, not everyone can afford the best health care. How do we make sure this better future isn't just for the people who are already doing okay?
That's the key question right there. And it goes back to that idea of equitable access, making sure AI is actually helping even things out, not making the gap bigger between who has what.
Right, so it's not enough to just build the cool AI stuff. It also has to be available to everyone and actually used in a way that helps people who are struggling most.
100%. It's about using AI to create a fairer world, a world where everyone has a chance to do well. And that takes a real change in thinking, a real commitment to using this technology to lift everyone up.
It's like remembering the AI. It's a tool, right? And just like any tool, someone can use it the wrong way. It all depends on what we decide to do with it.
Exactly right. And that's why it's so important that we keep talking about this, about the ethics of it all. Because what we decide now is going to shape the future of AI in a big way.
Okay, so we've covered the what, this future where AI helps us fix big problems and build a fairer world. But what about the how? How do we actually make sure it gets used for good? How do we even build AI in a way that lines up with what we want, what we believe in?
Well, the first thing to realize is that AI, it learns from us. So our biases, the things we assume, our own values,
Yeah.
that stuff ends up in the AI we make.
So it's like that saying, garbage in, garbage out. If we feed it bad data or like program it with logic that's flawed, it's going to spit out more flawed stuff.
Exactly. So we need people from different backgrounds with different experiences working on this. Engineers, sure, but also ethicists, folks who study society, even philosophers. We got to make sure we understand what it means to be human if we're going to build something smarter than us.
So it's like building in safeguards, right? Checks and balances so the AI doesn't go off track.
It's even more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we're not talking about controlling AI like it's some simple machine. This is something way more complex, something that could end up being more intelligent than us.
Which brings us back to that wild idea you mentioned before, making sure AI's goals are the same as ours. But how do you even start to do that? Aligning something that big with something as, I don't know, messy as human values.
It's a huge challenge, no doubt about it. But one we can't ignore. One promising approach is focusing on transparency and explainability.
So no more of those AI black boxes where it spits out an answer and we're just supposed to trust it. We need to be able to like look under the hood, see why it's doing what it's doing.
Got it. If we can understand how an AI is making decisions, it's a lot easier to spot problems, fix biases, see where it might be going off the rails.
It's like having a conversation with the AI, right? Like, okay, interesting idea, but tell me, how did you even get there? What's the logic?
Exactly. And that ties into another important aspect of alignment, making sure humans are still in the loop. We can't just let AI run wild, especially when it comes to decisions that affect people's lives.
So it's not about handing over control, it's about partnership. AI does what it's good at, but humans are still guiding things.
Exactly. AI should be a powerful partner, helping us build that better future. But ultimately, we're the ones holding the map, right? Our values, our ethics, those are the compass.
It's that whole thing. With great power comes great responsibility. We're about to unleash this insanely powerful technology, and it's on us to make sure it's used for good.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that responsibility starts with understanding what AI can do, the good and the bad. We have to talk about it, ask the hard questions, and demand transparency from the people who are actually building this stuff.
So what can regular people do? It all seems so big and complicated. How do we even make our voices heard?
Honestly, just knowing what's going on is a huge first step. The more people understand AI, the better decisions we can make as a society.
Knowledge is power, right? So we need to educate ourselves, stay up to date on what's happening with AI, and be willing to talk about it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. When you see AI being used in your own life, stop and think, how was this built? Who is it benefiting? Are there any downsides I'm not seeing?
Like becoming more conscious of the technology we're using, thinking about the impact it has. But what about the really big stuff? What can governments do? What about laws?
Now, there's where it gets interesting, because we're talking about figuring out how to govern a technology that's changing faster than anything we've ever seen.
That's a tough one. So where do we even start? What kind of policies and regulations do we need to make sure AI is used responsibly?
Well, we need to start with some ground rules, right? Ethical guidelines for building and using AI. Things like protecting people's data, making sure those algorithms are transparent, and figuring out how to get rid of bias.
So, setting some boundaries to make sure AI respects our values, our rights as humans, makes sense. Anything else?
We've also got to think about the economic side of things. Automation is going to change what jobs look like, so we need to find ways to create new opportunities and make sure everyone benefits from AI, not just a select few.
So, back to that idea of a more equitable future, even as the world of work changes. How do we make sure everyone comes out ahead, not just falls behind?
It's a tough question with no easy answers. But some folks are suggesting things like a universal basic income, where everyone gets a minimum amount of money no matter what. Or policies that encourage companies to retrain their workers, give them skills for the jobs AI will create.
Interesting. So thinking in new ways, adapting to how quickly things are changing. But it's not just about the economy, right? AI is going to change how we relate to each other, how our communities work.
You're absolutely right. We could see massive shifts in our relationships, how we build communities, even how we see ourselves. We need to be aware of that and make sure AI is helping us strengthen those bonds, not tear them apart.
So it's about holding on to what makes us human, even as technology keeps advancing at warp speed. Sounds like a future worth striving for.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
And it's going to take all of us working together to make it happen.
Speaking of working together, what about education? Don't we need to prepare kids today for a world where AI is everywhere?
You're spot on. Education is key. And it's not just about teaching kids how to use AI, but also how to think about it, how to spot bias, how to be responsible with this technology.
So instead of just being shaped by AI, they can help shape what it becomes. But it's not just kids, right? We all need to keep learning about this stuff.
Absolutely. AI is constantly changing. So we all need to stay curious, keep up with the latest developments, and never stop asking questions.
Because in the end, the future of AI, it's not some set path, right? We're all creating it together. Every choice we make, every conversation we have.
And those choices, they matter. The decisions we make today are going to echo for generations.
No pressure, right? But seriously, it's kind of daunting, but also really exciting to think about how much power we have to shape this future. So as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive, what are some of the big takeaways you hope people will remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that AI is a tool. And just like any other tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to make sure we're using it responsibly, ethically, in a way that benefits everyone.
So no need to be afraid of AI. It's more about learning how to use it wisely.
Exactly. And that means being proactive, talking about it, and making sure our governments are creating policies that support responsible AI development.
So staying informed, staying engaged, and making our voices heard.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Remember, nothing is set in stone. We are all actively creating the future of AI, one conversation, one decision, even one line of code at a time.
And that actually leads into another big question. If we do manage to break free from this Turing trap, if copying humans isn't the goal, what comes next? What does the next chapter of AI look like?
Well, that is a question worth pondering, isn't it? And maybe, just maybe, it's the perfect place to start our next deep dive.
You've definitely got me curious. But for now, I think it's time to take a step back and let everything we've talked about sink in. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it? From AI solving the world's biggest problems to the ethics of it all, the need for human oversight, there's a lot to unpack. But if there's just one thing I want you to walk away with today, it's this. It's this. The future of AI. It's not like some already written story, you know? What it becomes depends on what we do. Right now, the choices we're making, even just talking about this stuff, it all matters.
That's exactly it. It's like we're standing at the edge of, I don't know, a whole new world. A little scary, sure, but also exciting. We could do things with AI we've never even dreamed of. But we've got to be the ones holding the map, you know?
And part of that, I think, is letting go of the old way of thinking. If we're not trying to build AI that's a perfect copy of us, how do we even judge if it's successful or not? That's been bugging me this whole time.
Oh, you and every AI researcher out there, let me tell you, it's a huge debate. Some folks, they want those hard measures, like, can this AI solve this crazy math problem? Or can it write a piece of music that makes you feel something? But others, they say it's got to be about the real world impact. Does it actually help with things like climate change, inequality, that kind of stuff?
So less about checking boxes on a list and more about figuring out what we want the world to look like and then seeing if AI can help us get there.
Exactly. It all comes back to making sure AI is pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, towards our values, what we aspire to. making tomorrow better than today. And that's a huge shift in thinking. We can't just ask, can we build it? We got to ask, should we? And if we do, how?
And maybe even more important, what does better even mean? This isn't just about fancy new gadgets. We're talking about shaping the future here.
100%. We got to broaden our idea of progress,
Yeah.
Can't just be about the tech itself. It's the social impact, the ethical stuff, even spiritual if you want to go there. What kind of world do we want for our kids, our grandkids? And can AI help us build that?
Whoa. Okay, those are some seriously big questions. But they feel important. Like, this isn't just about ones and zeros in a computer. It's about what it means to be human.
Right. And that, I think, is what makes this whole thing so fascinating. We're trying to build machines, but really, we're trying to understand ourselves, what we value, where we mess up, what we're capable of.
It's like we're holding up a mirror to humanity, except the reflection is this super-powered computer that thinks a million times faster than we do.
And that reflection comes with a lot of responsibility, because what we do now with AI, it's going to have consequences for a long, long time. It's kind of humbling,
Yeah.
and a little terrifying.
Yeah. Feeling both of those right now, not gonna lie.
So we're about at the end of our deep dive here. Any last thoughts you want to leave folks with? Something to, chew on as they go about their day? I'd say approach this whole AI thing with your eyes open, your mind open. Be curious, but don't just accept everything you hear. And whatever happens, remember, it should be about making things better for everyone, not just a few.
I like that. Curiosity, a little bit of healthy skepticism, and always remembering the bigger picture. Good advice for life in general, I think, not just when we're talking about robots and algorithms and all that.
Well said. And remember, this isn't the end of the conversation, not even close. We got to keep talking, keep learning, keep adjusting course as AI changes.
Exactly. So everyone out there listening, keep those minds open, keep asking those tough questions, and keep the conversation going. Thanks for diving deep with us today. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and who knows what amazing things we'll discover together.